Sometimes people want to connect our also text equipment to a Crestron system, AMX system, or RCI system, or other remote control system, or to a computer. So we have an adapter here called PS1DB9, and what this is an interface module. And today I'm going to show you how to connect this up to a TMR017 timer and make it work. So I'm going to start out simple here. This is our R32 to RJ11 adapter. I'm going to plug it into the serial port. I already have a PC hooked up here with a terminal program and running. And I'm going to get a power cord, plug it in, and then a green light comes on. Now I'm just going to take a 6-connector phone cord here. Now this is a crossover phone cord. And the way you tell what kind it is, you're going to, if you put both connectors side by side, you'll see that the white wire is on the same side, or if I turn it the other way, the blue wire is on the same side. Now a standard phone cord has one wire across from the other, so we have to make this up specially so that both ends are exactly the same. Now this is a 4-conductor phone cord right here. This is exactly the same thing except only 4 conductors. The black wire is on one side, flip both ends over, and the yellow wire is on the same side. But the key is that both connectors are made exactly the same way. So right now I'm going to start with the 6-conductor cord. I'm going to plug it into the TX jack on this unit and into the RX jack. So I'm feeding data from itself back into itself. And I'm going to go over the PC here, and I'm going to type characters on the screen. And whatever you type is echoed back. So, and if I unplug this cable right here, and I'll type, nothing happens. So I know my communication is working because I can plug this thing in, type characters, and it works. Okay, so I know that my communications works. I know this serial port adapter is good and works, and this cable is good. So now I'm going to disconnect the cable from one end and leave the TX jack connected. Now I've got a TMR017 in front of me here, and there's 3 jacks in the back. And the jack that I want to use right now is this jack here marked RX. So, but there's a little jumper right in here. I got to pull this jumper, and the jumper says TX equals RX. So if you see that, I got to pull that jumper. TX equals RX ties the transmit and receive together to be one common pin. But in this case, we don't want to do that. We want to have them separate. So now I'm plugging the TX jack from the PS1DB9 into the RX jack on the TMR017. So now I have communication. Now this is a 6-pin cable, and I get communication in both directions. Data transmitted out of here goes into the timer. Data from the timer comes back into this unit. Now if I were to use a 4-conductor phone cord, I only get communication in one direction, from here to here, but not back. So today I'm going to do both directions. So here's the timer. It powers up, it says hello, and I go over to the computer, type in TMEA, and then the timer starts running and starts counting down. Now if I type in TMEB, that stops the timer. And there's other commands I can type as well. Once the thing is in timer mode, it doesn't want to go back, it locks itself into timer mode. So you have to pull the power cord to get it to go back into remote mode. So I want to type in DSP1234, and the message shows up on the screen. So this is considered remote mode. So there's 2 different modes. Remote mode, which is I'm sending commands from the computer to this thing, and whatever I type in the computer shows up on the screen here. And so it acts like nothing more than a display, and the buttons aren't used. So, but I want to go back to the timer mode now. So TMEA. That puts it back in timer mode. Now once it's in timer mode, it won't go back to remote mode unless I pull the power. So it's in timer mode. So TMEB stops the timer. So I've got one unit hooked up. Now I want to hook up a second unit. So I've got a flush mount unit similar to the other. It's a TMR017, only the flush mount version. And it's only got one connector in the back of it. So I've got another cord. I'm going to use a 4-conductor crossover cord this time. And I'm going to plug that into the back of this remote unit. And then I have one more jack here I can use. This the TX jack. And I'm going to plug the other end into the TX jack. So now if we look here, data comes from the timer into this thing to control it on the RX jack, and then the TX jack transmits data back out over to the remote device. And you'll notice there's an LED blinking in there that indicates that it's transmitting data. Okay, now we look at this one here, and sure enough, it's showing exactly the same data as on the master unit. So I now have a slave hooked up to the master unit. Now I can hook up another one of these units. I'm going to unplug this one. And I have another TMR017, exactly like the first one. I'm going to plug that into the RX jack. Now in this case I can use either jack because I have TX RX jumper still installed, and this acts as a remote display. So there's no need for me to pull this jumper on the slave units, just the master unit. So now it works as a slave unit. Let me hit reset, start again. And now, if you'll notice, I'll put it in the other jack here. And it works. It counts down. So either jack will work on the slave units. Okay, I'm going to go back to the original jack. Okay, well I've got 2 of them hooked up, and that's fine. But what if I have to hook up 3 of them? Well, there's a limitation on how many connections I can make on this unit at one time, and the limit's 3. I got 1, 2, and 3. And in more than that, the thing is not capable of driving the data on that. So what do? I've got one more port on the back here, and this is an RJ45 port. It's an RS422 signal. It also carries power with it, and it takes a Cat5 cable. And this has a driver that can drive 1,000 feet or more easily. So I'm going to plug in a Cat5 cable into that jack. Now this is transmit only out, and so I can't hook it onto this jack because that's transmit only, and I can't use it on the slave. I can only do this on the master. So I have to plug a Cat5 cable into the master unit. Okay, now how am I going to make this work? I've got another device here called the PS422A, and this is a converter which converts the Cat5 RS422 into the RJ11 phone cord. Okay, it's got a TX and an RX input on it. So since I'm using the TX output on the TMR017, I'm going to hook that to the RX input on this unit. And it should blink once a second. The green light starts blinking, indicating that I'm receiving data from the master unit. Okay, now I need another phone cord. And I happen to have another crossover cord here. And this might seem a little confusing, but I actually hooked to the RX jack on this. I think they probably could have labeled it better, but that's what happened. And it now shows the same number. So let's go back to the master and change the numbers here. And sure enough, the remote unit shows the same thing as the master. And I hit start again, and it's counting down. So now I've hooked up 3 devices, and I can hook up another one on this to give 4, but then that's my limit until I add more adapters. So the Cat5 or RS422 can drive multiple devices at a very long distance. The RJ11 cord can run up to 2 devices, or a total of 3 devices connected together, at shorter distances, say 30 to 50 feet max. Anything more than that, you're going to have to go to the Cat5 and use long cables and more adapters. So anyway, that makes it all work.